coming, yes? No? I'm going to come now.
Come now. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Sam Kass. I think he was meant to be introduced, but...
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is Sam Kass. You will know him as the wonderful Sam Kass, chef, and having worked with Michelle Obama as her lead for food policy while she was in the White House with her husband, and with a fantastic work she was leading on helping kids live healthier lives in the United States. So welcome.
Good to be here.
And thank you for being with us. So you were working with First Lady Michelle Obama to help kids live healthier lives. What was your vision for what a healthier food system would look like for kids? What kind of food system do we need to get kids hooked on health rather than disease?
Well, I think we need to do a systems change approach. That was a joke, guys. Come on. How many times have you heard that term today? Just messing with you. You guys awake? Okay. Everybody doing good? You guys good? All right, I'm psyched to be here. No, I really am psyched to be here. That wasn't a joke. That was serious. What's the vision? I mean, I think... you guys have heard so many pieces of the vision. If I can put it most simply, and this is especially true for children, but I think it's true for all of us. I think the difference about children is that it's by far and away our most effective area of investment. So if you have $1 to spend and you're trying to get the most dramatic outcomes, your investment dollars in terms of health outcomes, your investment dollar will be spent on children. And actually, the younger you go, the more impact you're going to have. But for me, I think if I describe it most simply, I'll actually steal Coca-Cola's mantra, which they built their entire business on, which was within an arm's reach of desire. So basically, their whole strategy, they built one of the most powerful companies in the world by surrounding people with Coke and then making them want to desire it through marketing. And we need to do the same thing. We need to surround our children and our families with good, nutritious, sustainable food, and then we have to create a culture that makes them want to desire it.
Within arm's length of desire, that's a nice way of putting it. But I think we know that within arm's length of desire is often not the healthy and nutritious foods, but the foods which, well, let's face it, a lot of kids in the environments that they're living in environments with walls of fat, sugar and salt, whether that's in a poor urban slum, whether it's here in Stockholm. And they experience a lot of advertising, a lot of promotion. That is a reality. And as a mum and as a parent, many of us experience that. And businesses are making decisions to market that stuff to kids. What is your ask to business to say, what should they do about that?
It needs to stop. I mean, it's for me, the marketing to children is a pretty egregious violation of a contract that I think companies have with its consumers. And I got a lot of scars from this battle. I lost on this battle on a number of fronts. In the White House. But we also made a lot of progress, and some companies are doing a good job, but there's so much gray area, and now as our phones become the sort of center of marketing and communications, kids are carrying around with them the billboards. And digital marketing is something that has completely gone under the radar and is really taking a huge toll on our kids' well-being. So we just need to... Trust is the foundation of this interaction between the food companies and our consumers, and that trust is gone, and what little is left is further being eroded because of things like this. And so we just need to do the right thing. On the flip side, we need to take the power of marketing and start using it for our purposes. This idea that we're going to educate our way out of this, as somebody who spent all this time in public health, where education is our strategy, I honestly don't think it works that well. If that were the case, businesses would try to educate everybody. They don't. They market. Why? Because that's what works. That is an emotional connection. Marketing is based on an emotional connection. And if you want somebody to change a decision and you had $1 to do it, you're going to market that decision you're trying to get somebody to make. So that is, I think, we have to tap into that power, not just try to suppress it.
So stop some stuff and start others. You're working with companies who have made commitments to health and sustainability now. Tell us a bit more about what you're doing right now.
I do some strategy work. Just came out with a book called Eat a Little Better.
It's really good.
All around health and sustainability. It's a cookbook, so I encourage you guys to pick it up. Come on, I had to plug it. I mean, sales are tough these days. But the main thing that I'm doing is I'm a partner in a venture capital fund called Acre, which is investing in human health and environmental health throughout the food system. So agriculture, supply chain, and then consumer, but really underpinning technologies that are going to, we think, have a big impact. Because ultimately, we're going to need much more innovation if we're going to solve these challenges.
So where are you seeing these opportunities, particularly around healthy eating? Where are the real opportunities to affect real change in this space right now that you're seeing?
Well, on specific technologies, there's tons. I mean, endless technologies that I think are going to be transformational. Genetic engineering in the future forms, not modifications, but editing, and the various forms after, I think are going to give us an incredible opportunity, if used properly, to produce food that's healthy and affordable. The work on the biome, which someone has mentioned, I think we're just at the beginning. It's going to be transformational. There's supply chain efficiency work, alternative sources of fertilizer and insecticide. There's so much stuff happening throughout the supply chain. But I think if I step back, the things that we really need, we need a ton more investment. This whole space, every corner of it is undercapitalized. From an investment standpoint, it's like pennies to the need state. From a research standpoint, if you compare the investment dollars that have been given to make mostly corn and soy, a couple other crops, versus fruits and vegetables and whole grains, it's basically statistically insignificant. It doesn't actually show up. And the reason why we have such a big price disparity in junk food and healthy food, it's actually not subsidies. That is like the simplistic, actually pretty much completely not true, at least in the United States, but easy to buy into narrative. It's really because after like 75 years, we've invested so much in a few crops of the underpinnings of that system that we can grow these crops really efficiently. You can have like a 100,000 acre farm that doesn't have anybody on it, that has the crops and can be harvested in like a couple of days. The crops grow super close together, and that's where you're getting the efficiency. So we have to start bringing that kind of investment and innovation to foods that are going to be nourishing, the future generations. I think we need to see dramatic acceleration of progress from the business community. There's some really good work and some good leaders are here today. But as a whole, we're just not even close to responding to the challenges and the need states that we're facing. I mean, 1 in 3 of these young kids in the United States, and this is growing around the world, are on track to have diabetes. I mean, that's insane. So part of what we're seeing and part of the reason why big food companies are flat or in decline is because they're not meeting the needs of their consumers. So from an investment standpoint, it's just a huge opportunity. But from a public health standpoint, we need to work together to dramatically accelerate this change.
So there's a lot of actions there, a lot of things that can be done. You worked for years in public policy.
Yeah.
Have you got disillusioned with public policy, or is there any opportunity there that you still see in the public policy realm?
Well, as an American right now, that's a tough question to ask me. I'm not going to go there, but you know what I'm thinking. So of course, public policy has an important role to play. Like, absolutely. Anybody who tells you otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. But I think we get way too caught up in the role of public policy in this. Food is, in its core, a business proposition. In the federal government, at least in the United States, which I can obviously speak to the most, We directly controlled what kids ate, and the military bought a whole lot of food. But after that, you can shape and you can incentivize here and there, but the government doesn't have a huge amount of influence. And while I would have loved to have, totally comfortable with like Michelle and Barack sort of dictating what we should eat, I'm really happy that the guy in there now isn't telling me to eat a well-done steak with ketchup. So there's a healthy sense of resistance, at least in the United States, to overreach from the government. But there are strong policies that should be put in place. I think the thing that we need to keep in mind, though, and this is, I would say, the third point about where the big opportunity is, or at least where often I think these conversations really miss. We say the word, but we don't internalize what it means, is that food is the deepest expression of our culture. It is who we are. It is how we understand ourselves. It's how we understand who we're not. It's how we show love to each other. So, as a relationship to the government, we have to start to think, whenever we're asking somebody to change what they're eating, you're literally asking them to change who they are. And it's really important that we start to internalize that more. Like every time we sit here and come up with some plan in this little room, you have to really remember what we're really asking of people and make sure that we take an approach that takes that into account. Otherwise, we're going to fail. And so government isn't that good at that. And is not really well positioned to tackle the heart of those cultures. And at the same time, our politics is a direct reflection of our culture. So if you actually want policy and politics to start playing the role we all think it should play, people got to vote on this. And the same is true with businesses. Businesses are a reflection of our culture. So if you want them to change, so much of what that change is going to be rooted in is a change in our culture. And so I think we say that word, but we got to really internalize it and invest in that. Because if we do, all this other stuff we're talking about will become possible. Politicians aren't going to take on too much risk. If the culture doesn't support it, they're not going to do it. At least not where I come from.
Good point. So in the years of experience...
Thank you to that one person back there. I'm just kidding. I wasn't asking for applause. So
in the years of experience that you've had, what is the most important lesson that you've learned about how you can really affect change?
All right, we're running out of time. I'll give you 2 quick points. We spend too much time focusing on these utopic ideals and talking about what the perfect system is going to look like. And the reality is that it's a reflection of who we are and our economic status, by and large, and it doesn't relate to the reality of most people's lives. And so when we set forth this right way to eat and wrong way to eat, it alienates almost everybody. Because most people in their daily lives with their kids and 4 jobs can't implement the kind of things we're talking about. So we have to get much more focused on progress and celebrating progress than we are on sort of what's the right and wrong way to eat. And the second one, I'll tell a really quick story that I learned after the President Obama, then Senator Obama, won Iowa. I was telling this story to a couple chefs last night. And it was crazy. He wasn't expected to win. He won. It was amazing. We're all freaking out. And after the event, I was backstage and I came down around and he was standing there with his 2 most senior advisors. And as I walked by him, I just heard this half a sentence. But it taught me a really important lesson. I walked by and he said, "Just tell him to get on the train because the train's leaving the station." And I kept going. But what I learned in that very moment is the power of momentum. And what he had done there is captured momentum. And that once we have momentum, once he had it, everything was possible. Nothing was going to stop that man. And for us, we have to work to seize and capture and cherish and grow momentum, which means coming up with really good strategies that are super pragmatic, they're going to get some wins on the board, and that we can build from. Because we have more momentum now than I think we ever realized. We spent a lot of time talking about all the things that are wrong. But the fact that we're here and having this conversation, the fact that the word system change is mind-numbingly boring at this point, because we hear it so many times, is a huge win. And the point is, we have to really focus on taking names, taking numbers. We just want another one. What's next? We just want another one. What's next? But if we wait to keep hitting like the big, everything's awesome, we're never going to get the momentum that we need. And we're just going to continue to sit here and talk and talk. So we got to come up with those strategies, get the money, and like start getting some wins on the board. That's what I really learned from my time there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Wise words. Thanks for sharing them with us.
Thank you.